I don't think that when we say we're a Christian nation, I don't exactly think that that's accurate. We are founded on Judeo-Christian principles.
Yeah.
But what those constitutional framers wanted people to know is that you do not have to be a Christian to be an American. You don't.
You don't have
need
to be a Christian to be American. That's absolutely true.
And you need to be a moral people, but that morality was true of many religions, and it's true of many people that have no religion. You can have morals and standards. It's internal values, and that's important because people don't, when we say you're a Christian nation, it actually separates people from feeling like they belong, that they are part, or they can be successful.
Hi, welcome to Cultural Catalyst, where we help you learn how to live fully alive, co-labor with God, and change the world. And I'm your host, Kris Vallotton. And today I have Tenessa Audette with me. And Tenessa, you lead our God and Government class. That's very exciting.
Yes.
You also serve Brian Dolly. What position do you serve him in?
I am a district representative for the California State Senate in District 1.
That sounds very important. Wow.
The more words, the more
important. And you're also
important.
running for city council.
Yes, and here in Redmond.
And we should add that you have a business called Call to Action Consulting. I know that it's right down there.
That's right. Yeah, I've been helping other people get elected to office for the last 7 years.
And now you are running yourself.
That's right. I am my 11th client. And
you are your own 11th
yes,
client.
I'm my favorite
and
because I
favorite.
never argue with myself.
Ooh, that could be.
I say yes to every idea.
That's very scary. Hey, before we talk about that,
Okay.
I want to talk a little bit about you.
Okay.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, your family, and then we'll get into like why are you doing this?
Yeah. My parents were saved in the Catholic Charismatic movement of the 70s, down in the Jesus movement down in LA. And my dad led guitar masses. So my mom and dad are both from a huge Catholic family. My mom's from 10, my dad's from 6. And they grew up down in the San Fernando Valley in LA. And they were doing guitar mass. Holy Spirit hit.
I went to visit the Pope.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about
Continue.
that later. Yeah, that's okay. You win. Okay, so they.
I do win.
You do. I know. We know. But so they played down at Loyola Marymount. The whole thing. They were part of that whole movement. They did festivals, and then the Catholic Church was like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. And so, let's tame it down a little bit. So they had been going to a Foursquare church and doing Friday night concerts at this thing called the Bread Box, which is in Chatsworth. Yeah. My mom was pregnant with me. They prophesied over her, and it was just a wild time. So they loved that. But yeah, they prophesied that I'd be a girl and a prophetess, and they got it, at least 50% right.
Wow.
I'm a prophet. No, so they.
I'm
a girl.
A girl.
I'm a girl. I'm a girl.
You know
yeah,
you're
I'm a girl,
right?
So yes.
You feel like a girl?
So that I do.
Okay. Just making sure we've got to clarify.
I'm wearing pink, just so you know,
okay.
for sure. I'm a girl. But yes, so that is the. So then they started going to the Foursquare Church, and they got a band together, they got a bus, and they started traveling across the U.S. So we'd travel
Were they like
to the
Jesus
East Coast.
people, hippie
totally.
Jesus people?
Oh, yeah, the long hair, the mustaches. We had a
whole
whole
hey,
group.
careful.
And it was like a whole band. We traveled together, stop somewhere, work, raise money, go do these concerts or Bible concerts.
That was really Jesus people.
Yeah, it was fun. People got healed. So we were I was a night owl for a long time because we were up at night. Yeah, but there was... My mom and dad had 4 kids by the time my mom was 24. So there was 4 kids on a bus.
You're the oldest?
I'm the second oldest, 3 boys and me. So I got a lot of prayer.
On a bus?
Everywhere we went, people were praying for me because I was the only girl with all these brothers in a big band.
Absolutely.
So it was quite exciting. We did that till I was 7. And then we came back to the San Fernando Valley and, started doing normal life. My dad got a job and... He
got a real job.
He got a real job. But, we sang in church, and we were just always part of church. And
That's really beautiful, actually.
Yeah. So for me, I just always thought I'd end up somewhere in the church. I had that word, so I knew who I was. I was called to God. I was called, and I was a missionary, so I knew my scripture. And that's just sort of been the filter for my life, is the Word of God. And so it was in high school, I was the one who, would talk a lot in our religious classes. So I went to Baptist Junior High School. I went to Catholic high school. Yeah, it was really fun. So we went through all the denominations.
Kind of stay with the roots a little bit.
Yeah, we did a little homeschooling.
I did tell you I visited the Pope, right?
You did visit the Pope. But yeah, so I've kind of been in a lot of different denominations. But yeah, so.
And now you're married?
I am married.
Where'd you meet your man at?
In college.
At the Catholic college. Oh, no, you went to Catholic high school.
Yeah, I went to Catholic high school. About 15, my parents got divorced. And so we are all together as a family. Everything is Bible studies.
I didn't know that part of the story.
Yeah.
That's tragic.
It was, and it really upended our lives. And so it was very challenging. And the Lord said to me in my very deep, dark depression that I was in, so are you following me because of your dad? Or are you following me because of you?
He's got no grandkids.
And I said, I'm following because of you. And he's like, okay, well, it has to look like something. So, so I just sort of have known who I am and whose I am my whole life. But circumstances, all the circumstances, have fought really hard to disrupt that in my life. And it was not very easy. I think I'm a 9 on the ACEs score, which all happened between the ages of 15 and 18. So it was an intense, traumatizing season.
Yeah, which for people that don't know, that's kind of the risk, risk assessment of children.
It's adverse childhood experiences. There's 10.
Yeah, it's not good. Like the low numbers are better.
Right. So you can have 10, and I have 9 out of 10. And it happened in a pretty short span, and it was just kind of felt like all of hell tried to take out our family.
Yeah.
And I, just for myself, having known what I was called to, just sort of stayed the course and just pursued whatever I possibly could to not create more chaos for myself.
Wow.
I slept a lot because I thought that was not, too sinful.
Yeah.
I was just depressed.
Kind of depressed.
Yes. Yeah. So, but I just kept going, and nothing was really going to stop me from going. And I left home on a train with nothing to start school, was just going to figure it out. And so just been a bit of a plugger.
Where'd you go to school?
I went
college.
I went to Palomar Junior College down in San Diego. Played volleyball there. Took a train. I walked to school or took the bus to school until an uncle decided to buy me a car, which was awesome. So I got 3 jobs.
Did you get a degree?
I have my degree in political science from Sonoma State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I got recruited up there. Went there. That was good, and I met Jeff there.
And how long have you been married?
Well, I was married for...
I knew we were going this direction.
Okay, so I was married for 15 years when I got divorced. We were divorced for 3 years. And then during COVID, we were trapped together with our family, and we reconciled, and we got remarried.
I married you.
And Kris married us,
in the middle of a field.
That's right.
Actually, during COVID, with just your family.
Yeah.
That was really a beautiful reconciliation.
Yeah, it really was.
So let's talk a little about government and God. And you've been obviously, well, let's just back up and say you have a degree in political science. So you've had some interest for a long time.
Yeah.
So what exactly got you interested in government? And then what does God and government actually mean to you?
I've always been interested in history, so I very much like the news, and political science is a research degree. So
Do you have a hero in history, American history?
I don't necessarily have people that are my heroes, but I definitely have ideas that I think are pretty incredible. Freedom is one of those, and so I have a high value for freedom, which means I have had to learn and have a high value for boundaries. Because that's how you actually harness freedom into incredible prosperity and success and advancement. And so I don't have specific people, because people are people. So
people are people.
Yeah, take the good and the bad.
I sort of like George Washington, although I know he's gotten a rap lately and.
Yeah, I mean, I think their ideas are more important. Yeah, I mean, when you look at our Constitution,
they're humans.
Well, yeah, but our Constitution took the best ideas. When they
Yeah.
built this document, built this idea, they built this society, they really took all the best ideas, and they had the benefit of hindsight, seeing what did and didn't work, and
Yeah.
tried to cover all of our bases for this grand experiment, which is America.
So are you trying to, so God and government,
Yeah,
we're talking a little bit about your philosophy now,
true story.
because you're like, I don't know if I have a favorite person, because people are flawed, and George Washington had slaves, and everybody that we celebrated in high school when I was a kid are now, being obviously questioned. But ideas, philosophies, do you think that Christians should want to Christianize America or Christianize their city? Or what does it mean? Like, well, when I hear God and government, I think a little bit like, on the dark side, maybe like Mormon Utah or something like that, where
Yeah.
religion dominates a whole culture. I think a lot of people have even that question in Reading, right?
Right.
Like the crazies are taking over and they're taking all of our rights away, and we're all going to have to like stand in corners and fast and pray. And let's talk about that just a little bit. What do you see? And as a government, obviously you'd love to be a government official. You're running for city council. Just all of that. Let's talk through that.
Yeah, so I think that the choice of God in government is to rightly explain to Christians exactly God's role in the United States Constitution and us as our civic engagement, what our responsibility is as citizens. So God has a place in the founding of our nation, and it's important that we actually understand how that is, so we don't say things that actually divide us, but we say things that bring people in. And so our Constitution is different than any other Constitution before and after, because it says that our rights come from God and not from government. It doesn't come from man, it comes from God. So you can't just take those rights away. And what that afforded us is a completely different set of operating rules, where we're not a law of men, but a nation of laws. And so just like we're not it's not heroes that I have, it's amazing ideas that I appreciate. And so it's, for us in the class, it's really important that people understand, number one, what was happening in the politics of Jesus' day. Who are the actors in the Bible that are actually political figures as opposed to religious figures? Jesus, when he came, immediately he said, I got to go away because the people are going to want to make me their king. And he didn't come to be a politician, But he also multiplied bread, and he didn't come to start a restaurant. And he also, he did a lot, he healed people. He didn't come to start a hospital. Like, he came to bring people closer to God, to connect them to who God is, and to bring them into a family.
So good.
To have them belong. And so, when people say like, well, Jesus didn't do this, and so we shouldn't as political figures, or we shouldn't as Christians, it's like, he was doing something different.
Yeah.
And so we don't compare him to...
He was a mission. He had a specific mission.
Absolutely. And it wasn't to be a politician. But that doesn't mean we demonize politicians. But I feel like for some, when you're reading the Bible, when we're talking about government, we're talking about the local government in the Bible is the Sanhedrin. That is the city council of the day. If you think of in biblical times, if you think of, like our government here is set up as, we have the federal government, state government, local government.
Yeah.
Well, Rome would have been the federal government. That's your president. Then you're going to have your governor, which at the time that Jesus was born was Herod. And then it got divided up. Israel got divided up into 3 portions. And during when Jesus was on trial, it was Pilate who was the governor. But the Sanhedrin was the city council. And the high priest at that time was like the mayor or the Supreme Court judge, because, your local government is your judicial system, and it was all mixed together then. Yeah. And so your Sanhedrin is your city council, and you had 2 political parties in your Sanhedrin. You had the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Those were 2 political parties
That's
at the time.
sounding way familiar.
Yeah. Right? So when you're talking about that, I think the context, people think that if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be involved. Like, the church thinks you shouldn't be involved in politics.
Lots
and so there's a battle. I'm not like, yes, the people that aren't Christians feel threatened by people that are in the church and getting into politics, and I understand because of the way we talk, but also the church thinks it's pretty dirty a lot of times to be involved in politics, and it's just too messy and corrupt and all that kind of stuff. But that was happening back in Jesus' time as well. You know, when he flips over the table in the temple, it's one of the first things that happens that's recorded in John. You know, he's doing that because the high priest is in charge of those weights and measures. City council is still in charge of weights and measures in the city. And when Jesus flips over those tables, my guess is what was under those tables is what was allowing them to cheat when it came to weights and measures.
Yeah.
You know, he didn't get arrested. The very thing that they charge him with when he is crucified is saying that he will tear this temple down and raise it in 3 days. Well, he said that in the temple, and they didn't arrest him at the time.
Yeah.
So he must have exposed something that was even more embarrassing than listening to what he had said.
Yeah,
that they didn't charge him for until later. So there was corruption there. The high priest, actually was in charge of how they were charging the people, and he was charging the poorest of the poor. He was taking advantage of their religious affection for God and their duty to God, and they were actually making money off of it, because anybody that became that high priest was then financially taken care of by the temple.
Yeah.
And he was appointing his sons and his son-in-laws for short periods of time so they would all then be financially taken care of by the temple. So there was corruption happening in the Sanhedrin, and so he rightly was upset with that. And he has very harsh words for Pharisees and Sadducees, and we're not talking about religious, we're talking about a political party.
Yeah.
And he was very frustrated with them, obviously, and that's all throughout the Bible. So I think when we put it into context, I think it helps Christians to understand, like, oh, well, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't understand that that's what he was being critical of and why he was being critical. But it's actually really important. So when we talk about God and government, I don't think we are, this is the most controversial thing I say in class, and it gets everybody upset. I don't think that when we say we're a Christian nation, I don't exactly think that that's accurate. We are founded on Judeo-Christian principles.
Yeah.
But what those constitutional framers wanted people to know is that you do not have to be a Christian to be an American. You don't.
You don't have to be a Christian to be American. That's absolutely true.
And you need to be a moral people, but that morality was true of many religions, and it's true of many people that have no religion. You can have morals and standards. It's internal values, and that's important because people don't, when we say you're a Christian nation, it actually separates people from feeling like they belong, that they are part, or they can be successful. And people from other nations that are amazing and wonderful and moral and do amazing things that we should replicate feel like, well, but I'm not American, so I can't really, it's not a Christian, that type of thing. And I don't want that. I mean, even when our Constitution was ratified, there were 7 states that had state religions. Even Jefferson, who wrote the separation of church and state in our federal government, which is really, really important, as you know, running a church.
It's not in our Constitution, but...
we will have no federal religion is in our Constitution.
Yes, exactly.
And the importance of that is that the state cannot tell the church what to do.
Yes.
Right? It's very important. We want that freedom. Well, when the Constitution was ratified for no federal religion, the states had religions. 7 of the 13 states had religions. But what Jefferson writes about later is that it actually diminished their influence because people only wanted to come live in those states if they were that religion. And it actually limited their growth. It limited their potential because what they realized, or Jefferson realized, it's better to not have that. It actually is limiting to just be exclusive. And he wanted obviously the states to have more influence. And so they wanted more people to come. So this concept is really important. It should be embracing when you're a government person. You shouldn't be out there, evangelizing. That's not the role of a government official. It's to actually unify, bring us all together on what is more of the same about us than what makes us different. And so I caution people, and I teach this in my class, and I caution people not to say things flippantly like we're a Christian nation, because it actually makes people not feel like they belong.
Yeah.
And in the kingdom, we all belong.
Yeah, and I think too, it's, we've had this dialogue many times, and I teach in the class too.
Yeah.
And we talk through the fact that part of being in government is that I represent the people.
Yeah.
All the people. So I'm not a pastor.
Correct.
And we if you read, in fact, I would really encourage our audience to read Romans 13, the first 8 or 10 verses, because that outlines the Christian view of government right there. And then we have the fivefold ministry in Ephesians chapter 4, the apostle, prophet, evangelist, pastor, teacher. They have a specific role in culture. And I think that oftentimes we're asking our government leaders to do what our spiritual leaders are actually tasked with.
Right.
So, as a Christian, I do want to see people come to Christ.
Right.
I do believe that without Christ, that you're, one, lost, and two, I don't think you come to your true destiny without Christ. But I'm not asking my governor, my city council, my president to, as you just said, to culturize
Right.
our city, our nation, our
Right.
state to Christian nation. I'm asking, I am tasked as a leader in a church to bring Christianity to unreached people in our community. But that is not the role of government.
Correct.
And so I think it's really important that we actually make that distinction, so that when we vote for somebody as a government leader, that we think, well, I'm going to vote them in because they're going to turn our city to Christ. I'm like, actually, that would be your responsibility. Their responsibility is to act fairly with all people,
Right.
no matter their religious affiliations or
Right.
not religious affiliations,
Right.
because that's a just balance
Yeah.
that Proverbs talks about.
Yeah, I'd prefer that people think I was a person of character, of integrity, of honesty, of hard work, than that, oh, she's just a Christian. Like it should look like something.
Yeah.
And I don't want to go around, of trying to evangelize people when actually my job is to do something far different.
Run a beautiful city.
Yeah. Yes. And that means I bring in the most amount of people that want to do good. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, or if that you're no religion at all.
Yeah.
I'm no threat to the people that are different than me.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be true in many different respects. There's
Yeah.
people have different interests and different focuses and priorities, but it's a different opportunity.
I think that sometimes people don't realize that God planted two trees in the garden, right? A virtual good tree and a virtual bad tree. The tree of life, a tree of knowledge of good and evil, which leads to death, right? I mean, the devil convinced Eve and Adam to eat that wrong tree, but God planted it.
Right.
Which tells us the nature of God, that God is the God, as you just said, of freedom,
Right.
of free will.
Right.
And we think often as Christians, we cut down the second tree, and we think that we have sanctified the world by
Right.
taking away choices.
Correct.
Right? And so, but it's the nature of God to give people free choice. It's the nature of God to give people the ability to sin.
Yeah.
Right? Freedom. We have freedom at the risk of sin.
Well, yeah, and as a church, we're either there to tell you all about which one is right and wrong, and hey, you're sinning. I don't know if you know this or not, but you're sinning. It's like, yeah, I don't need you to tell me that. Why don't you tell me about the God that says, I care that you get a choice?
I care, and also,
You know what I mean?
and I've given you an answer before there ever was a problem.
Right.
But that is not the role of government.
Correct.
Give me a little bit. We have about 10 minutes left. Let's talk about Reading, because you're
Okay.
running for city council.
Yeah.
And you've been here a long time.
Yeah.
What is your vision for Reading? And if you get elected, like, what do you think are major problems? I know there's problems everywhere, but what are the major problems that you can't fix everything, but
Right.
what would you go after? What would be the benefits of you being on city council?
Yeah.
If someone wants to, actually vote for you.
Yeah, I get asked this question, why are you running? What are you doing? Why would you choose to do this? It's more so like, why now, not before? And so the timing of it is it's right for my family.
Yeah.
And the city, I feel like, is in an incredible place. And I'm not running because I want to fix something or I think it's broken or I think it's wrong. I actually think there's so much right with Reading.
Yeah, it's really
and
improved.
we have incredible people. We've made incredible progress. We're building like we've never built before. We know what our issues are quite specifically down to details. And it's just a matter of how do we bring people together? How do we make these connections to where we can solve issues? Because I don't think government solves our problems. I think people solve problems.
Yep.
And it's about bringing together the right people to solve whatever issue we have. And Reading is sort of this amazing, unique place. I listen to the news all the time. I love it. I read. I consume information, because
You love the
I
news.
love it. I love information.
You and I are
It's-
on the same
it's
page there. So.
Yeah, information is
forgive you.
power. So thank you. So I like it. I listen to it. I'm looking for the kernels of truth or the patterns and trying to figure out exactly what's trying to be accomplished and pushed and whatnot. So for me, when I'm listening and I hear this idea of we're going to send social workers instead of police officers, I'm like, well, that feels really dangerous.
You mean into like domestic violence situations?
Or any type of criminal behavior.
Yeah.
You're going to send it, like, how's that going to work? Well, locally, we actually started doing that. And when I heard about it, I was like, well, let me go find out some more. And so I did a ride along with it's called CERT, which is our Crisis Intervention Response Team, which is a licensed therapist that goes out with 2 plainclothes detectives, or not detectives, officers.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me see how this works. It's remarkable. And what they're doing will change the way we police.
So good.
For sure in California, but I think everywhere.
We got a great police chief.
Yeah, we have a great police chief.
We should put a plug in for him right now.
Yeah, Schuler's amazing.
He is.
And the thing about our local government is that it's everybody here in this local government, whether you're on police, fire, city officials, you live here. So you live where you're affecting every choice that they make. You know, I was talking to a friend, and he's in Redding's police department, and he was like, you know, my wife goes on the trail. I care if the trails are safe.
Yeah.
I care if the homeless community is reaching too far into public spaces, like, and it becomes unsafe. They care. So okay, so we have people that care, people that understand government, know how to navigate it. We have so many nonprofits in our community. I don't know a single person that's not involved with multiple nonprofits because there's time. We don't have commutes, so we have time. For all my friends in LA listening, it's nothing like everything's 10 minutes away. Yeah. And if it's 12, we complain. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's literally 10 miles away.
Yeah, we're not spending 2 hours a day driving or longer.
So we have time. We have the resource of time, and we give back constantly. And so, to me, what we have here is amazing. So I've heard that story, so send a social worker. So then I watched it. And what they're doing is they're actually singling out these people that have, maybe they have criminal behavior, but it's probably because of addiction or it's because of mental illness. And they get picked up by the RPD. RPD books them, but when they come out, they're waiting for them. And they're saying, okay, we're going to get you some services. Like, are you ready? Are you ready to get help? Are you ready to go into treatment?
Help them solve the real root issues as opposed to just being repeat. Because some of these calls, I was talking to the police chief. This has been a while ago, but he was telling me that like a high percentage of their calls are just the same repeat offenders over and over.
Hundreds of times.
Yeah.
Yeah, hundreds of times. I mean, we have problems. We're living in California. We have laws that actually put people right back out, that have decriminalized criminal activities. Yeah. So it just means that there's no punishment for those crimes. Yeah. And it sort of terrorizes our communities because it's really very obvious to us, our daily life. Maybe you get your car broken into, you get a window broken. And so it's our quality of life issue. So it's like, okay, well, we have a community that cares. We have a community that's very involved. We can solve this, and we can innovate to the point where we can actually go and teach other cities and counties how to do this.
That's so good.
And that's what I want. And our city doesn't even know half the time. Like, they don't know what we have, and I want them to know. And as a representative, it's my job to represent government to people and represent the people to government. Yeah. And we shouldn't be contentious with government. I tell my class, like, if you're offended by things in government, my only ask of you the whole year is to meet your offense with curiosity. Just go find out the answer. Yeah. So if something I say is like, well, that can't be true, go find out why. And if you find out something better, tell me. Yeah. Confront me. I'm good. Make me better by telling me the error of my ways, because I will just as hard push exactly the truth if you find it different than what I'm saying.
So you're in supporting the direction that we're going for law enforcement, which is highly compassionate. It's highly, if I could say, it's kind of a mentoring, discipling, whatever word you want to put. It's effective because you're actually connecting people relationally.
Yes.
To healthy people who are helping them.
Yes.
You got about 3 minutes.
Okay.
Is there something else that you would like to say concerning the city?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's going to boil down to, I want to create a better connection between the people and government. I want to empower people, because in our government, people are the pinnacle of power. But they don't feel that way. People
Yeah.
don't feel powerful
No.
to their governments.
No.
And so they don't feel heard by them. So there's several things that I'll do. I'll have office hours, which is a part-time job, city council, but it won't be for me. I will have office hours. I will go out to businesses to talk to them. I will do public forums because we have to have places other than the principal's office of the city council chamber
Yeah.
where people are nervous and, you get up there, nobody talks back to you, and it's
You
just
got
awkward.
3 minutes if you have
3
anything.
minutes, get your whole life, and explain the whole argument in 3 minutes. I just want to make it so that people feel like they can be heard, that they can hear their government officials, and that there is an exchange of ideas, a negotiating of ideas, and then someone's going to fight for them. If you have me on your team, I'm a good advocate. I'm a good advocate for truth, and so I want to be that to the people.
So good. How can people get in touch with you to maybe have this dialogue with you,
Yeah.
or maybe bring you into a group of people who you could have this dialogue with?
So all my contact information is on my website, which is votetenessa.com.
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 Tenessa, thanks so much for being on the Cultural Catalyst webcast. And as you know, I can't promote you publicly, but I do want to say that you've done a great job for me, and I would recommend that people look at your website and make a great choice. God bless you.